Hello everybody and welcome to another walkthrough of the Textguides with me, Tommy, and with Matthew Waring, aka Erelic Gaming, and Mr. RJTV. How are you doing, guys?
Very, very well. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for having me back here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great as well.
Nice! So yeah, it was a while ago that we did this, but we're ready. We're so focused, laser focused, to give you the best possible information about the Coast to Coast tournament. And as you probably know already, Matthew is going to take care of Rookie, RJ is going to take care of Pro and Expert, and me and myself, I'm gonna try to at least take care of Master. So Matthew, what do you think about the tournament that is coming up?
I think this is a really well-placed tournament. I think there's going to be a major coming pretty quickly. This one looks like it's going to be reasonably tough. The Albas are not gimmies. The Eagles are not gimmies. You're going to have to really just play for fairways and greens. You get a couple of drops here, you're going to be doing pretty well. I think in Rookie, maybe a 28, 29 could be taking gold in some brackets.
Interesting. What do you think, RJ, about Pro and Expert here?
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. There's just a few. There's a par 4 that, in my opinion, could be a par 5. There's a par 5 that almost feels like like you can't reach the green in 2, even with, perfection, unless you have a really big, 10-mile-an-hour plus tailwind and certain clubs. So, I'm really looking forward to the challenge here, and I hope, much like Matthew just said, that we have some very competitive scores. And by competitive, I mean, bringing it down. All you got to do is adjust the wind a little bit, and that really affects the scores too.
Interesting. I will say that I agree with you totally when it comes to Master as well. As for Master, as we all know, then, the scores normally becomes a little bit lower in the weekend round, but people becomes a little bit more dialed in Master. And but it's going to be very interesting, so to speak, and we'll see what we all can do. And for those of you that have never watched a video like this, it's a lot of talk, but it's a lot of super valuable information. So make sure that you are ready with your pen and paper, and most definitely don't forget to subscribe to Erelic Gaming, it's RJTV, or to the channel here. So in the end, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and let's go to hole number 1. So for hole number 1, we start off with a par 3. Matthew, how do we play hole number 1 from front tee?
Well, this one here, we're going to adjust 10% downhill elevation. I like to use a Marlin or a Navigator ball for the extra wind resistance. You can use a basic ball here, really, truly. It's not that big of a difference. I also prefer to make this shot with a backbone long iron. It has a pretty good accuracy, but you could play a Goliath or another one if it really suits your taste. You're going to follow that black box directly into the green. Use about 4 bars of backspin, and aim it kind of just before the pin and a little bit up the hill, just sort of with the intention of it bouncing in and rolling on down. Now, I do also play this shot occasionally in tour play with a no-move adjustment. May or may not work in the tournament. I'm not too sure. Depends on the wind. I like to give it about a bar of backspin, about a half a bar of side spin into the wind from either direction, and then just take your shot, adjust for wind and take your shot. Watch it matriculate on down to the cup. RJ, what do you think about doing here in Pro and Expert?
Well, in Pro and Expert, we're also at a 10% elevation. I like the Sniper, the Guardian, and the Viper as the main clubs to go with here. You can go anywhere from full backspin, 7+ bars of backspin, all the way to not really using much backspin at all. I mean, you could use a long iron if you want. This is such an easy hole. Because it just the green just slopes down right towards the hole. But basically, yeah, right where the black box is, I would like to play a Guardian there or a Sniper 10, and at least 7 backspin, 2 right spin just to fight against the hill a little bit. Second bounce by the hole, 2 squares away from the right of the hole, and the ball will slope right on in. That is one way to play it out of many. How do you got, Tommy?
Yeah, from Master, we're going to play it very similar, and it all depends on the wind here. If we do have a tailwind or a crosswind, we are going to play with a wood club. In a headwind, we are most likely going to play with the quarterback or with the rock. And we are also going to use the kind of, let's say, the right side of the green, but not really the right side. We're going to use the center of the green as the pin stands on the left, but we're going to use the green for the ball to fall down towards the pin. And as we play Master, we are most likely going to back up a little bit compared to where the black box is, and have the first bounce literally, you know, by the start by the bunker, using a little bit less backspin to get better control. But in the end, we're gonna see what we're gonna do. I do believe here from 30 that we're gonna see a lot of hole-in-ones with this one, and I do think that the elevation, even though we're playing it generally like 10%, from 30 we are going to play it 20 or 30% to kind of be able to adapt for the strong push that we're having from the wind. The wind 5 ball is again what I'm gonna suggest when it comes to par 3s in Master. So for hole number 2 we get our first par 4, and I do believe we're gonna see some eagles here. But Matthew, do you think the same from front tee?
I think it's almost essential. I do play this second hole basically almost always by the black line, even in pro, but especially in rookie. I like to play the drive 10% downhill elevation, and while I've traditionally played here with an extra mile, I think it's a risky play since the fairway does get narrow between the trees, and anything less than a perfect shot will likely leave you in a hazard. I recommend for most rookies we play this hole with a quarterback and a marlin or maybe a quasar ball, just to kind of give that extra little bit of power with the lower power distance rating on the quarterback. Then the goal basically to be landing right where that second black box is, and you're going to kind of roll up in between the bunker and the green. So basically to execute that second shot though, you're going to want to make sure to adjust for 10% uphill elevation, or that's like negative 10%. And it's a short iron shot here up to the pin. I usually play it with a thorn, 2 bars of backspin, but you can execute this with a hornet, Apache, any short iron will do. RJ, how do we secure this critical eagle in pro and expert?
Yeah, this is where this is where you really separate, the rookie, the pro, and the expert, because I feel like rookie, you definitely have, an opportunity to use something like a quarterback, like you suggested, was very smart. Pro, you might have lower level extra miles, but you're not going to be able to use a shorter. You're not going to be able to use a shorter driver. So you're going to want to use something that has. You're going to want to use an extra mile, and if you have another club that's upgraded enough, that has enough accuracy, you're going to want to use that if it has a lot of top spin. I always go left side as well, whether it's expert or pro. But the point that I was trying to make is I feel this is actually going to be easier for people in expert, just because we're both playing from the same tee, but you gotta hit perfect. And if you don't do that, if you have a lower level extra mile, you could find yourself in trouble, as to where if you have Thor's Hammer or Apocalypse or something, you can get right up there. And then for the second shot, like you said, minus 10%, we have the short iron, and I would choose the short iron with the best ball guide over accuracy. And the reason for that is because the pin is right by a cliff. So if you can get a really nice ball guide there, set it up with about 2 backspin, just so you have really good control of it, I think that you could definitely knock this one in for an eagle. I wouldn't expect it, but it'll definitely separate you from the pack. Also, just because I didn't mention it, whatever driver you use, you're going to want to use full topspin. What do you got for this hole, Tommy?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here in Master. If they give us like let's say a straight headwind or more headwind than we do have crosswind, we are not being able to, reach above the trees. So then we have to lay up and actually follow the blue line on the screen, which is not really a fun line, because then this is going to be just a pure birdie hole generally. But the reason we do have the first blue box so short is because the shorter we get, the easier it's going to be to play over the trees, instead of, being closer to the trees. Then the trees is going to, make the ball get stuck in there instead. So wanted to mention that just in headwind. But when we do have a crosswind, or tailwind, we are going to go left side, black line, give ourselves an open shot towards the pin instead of trying to mixture with the white line on the right there, which is always going to have the bunker before the pin. So left side, we're gonna play 10% over adjustment, and then second shot, short iron towards the pin, and it's gonna be Thorn, Hornet, Falcon, whatever you feel comfortable with. But in Master, this is, you do not really have room to miss this one. So if you hit a great ball for the second shot, you're most likely gonna miss. And in the end, you know, make sure to hit perfect, get the eagle here. Otherwise, you will struggle to get that one back on the other holes in this tournament, as there is many tough holes. Hole number 3. Yes, there is snow on the picture, but we will not play with snow. But Matthew, how do we play hole 3 from front tee?
I just turn off the game. No, the third hole, it's very long, can be very challenging. If you ask me, an eagle here in rookie, it's almost always an extra drop. It is an extra drop. I play the drive according to the black line, where I aim to get as far down the fairway as possible without going into the rough. However, it is possible in some winds to maybe get over. However, on average here, I tend to play it at least as safely as I can. I'm going to always use a power 3 ball on this hole, unless for whatever reason you just can't. Add 10% downhill elevation on the drive and the second shot for that matter. And that one we're going to play it with the big dog. So what I tend to do is basically, ideally, we're going to land just past the egg-shaped rough in the middle of the second fairway. So, you know, your first ball is going to land at the second black square. Then you're going to take your second shot up to that third black square. And what I like to do is give it 2 or 3 topspin, maximum left spin, and I do add a little bit of left curl to the second shot, because that fairway tends to slope quite heavily from the left to the right, and it will kick you off to the right into the rough. So make sure to just compensate for that. And then the third shot, I do play it with like a short iron with usually 1 to 2 bars of topspin, such as the Hornet. It's really my favorite club to use here. You could use a runner, but it has way worse ball guide. I like to bounce it onto the green instead of the fringe so that I have a consistent landing position. And I also use maximum left spin. So I hit the edge of the green, sort of where that white box is typically, and then you can kind of roll it up into the left. There is a slope at the back of the green that comes down, so don't be afraid of rolling too hot. It's going to roll back. I doubt this is going to be much fun in pro and expert. RJ, can you elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, it would be if it was a par 6, I guess. As long as we get a 10 mile an hour or higher tailwind, and by tailwind I don't just mean straight tailwind. It could be an angled tailwind. People who have an Apocalypse 4, Thor's Hammer 5, or Extra Mile 7 or better on all those clubs will have an opportunity for the white line with max overpower and a berserker, full top spin, full overpower. Going you're even with like a 14 mile an hour wind, I don't believe you're going to land in that sand trap, which obviously we'll be able to see when we actually get to play. And that means for everyone else who has lower level clubs or all other winds, we're going to be laying up near the top of the rough, as Matt had mentioned. Make sure to bring your big dog and your Cataclysm, because we have a very long second shot, and it's not very hard to keep it on the fairway either. We are definitely not trying to go for green unless we take that white line. Then we might have an opportunity of getting up there in 2. But even that's going to be very tricky. Your second shot, though, with your big dog or your cata is actually going to be 0%. So that's the one break this hole gives us. We're going to be going over the rough with that second shot, and we're probably going to be coming up on the left or the right, most likely the right-hand side of the sand that you really can't see on the picture because both the black line and the white line go over the sand. And then that could set you up for a long iron or short iron to the pin. Is if you're using the black line, then some people may be, depending also on the wind, you may have to bounce over that center rough mound, or you may be able to land on the opposite side of it. But then once again, you're still for your third shot, which is minus 10% uphill. You're going to be using either a long iron or a short iron. Probably a long iron would be my guess. Man, it's really tough in pro and expert. I would like to hear how you play this monster and masters.
We're gonna play the same way here, like it's two ways. If we do have tailwind, we are going to try to clear the rough. And if you're not having an Apocalypse level 6+, you will not clear the rough. Like, you just need to have that in mind. And sure, it would be better with a direct tailwind, but I would honestly say that a more angled tailwind would almost be better here, because then we can go max overpower. But with a, you know, a direct tailwind, the wind strength is going to be what's going to be difficult to kind of like, okay, so if we have a 16 or we have an 18 or we have a 14 in wind, that's always going to have a different effect when we go with max overpower, which is something that we need to think about on this one. But if we do have a tailwind, we're gonna go for a power 5 ball, Berserker, Snow Globe, Ghost Ball, Turbo Ball. Like, we do have plenty of those type of balls. And then we're going to have second bounce into the rough, roll out on the fairway. And for the second shot, if we do have tailwind, I would suggest the Guardian. And why Guardian instead of the Cataclysm? It's because with the tailwind, we're going to come in fairly hot. And I like to attack the green directly instead of trying to do a bounce over the rough and the sand there just by the green. So I'm using max backspin, and if so, using a little bit overpower to get the ball directly to the green. But then the backspin gives me room for error. So just that I hit the green is going to be the plan, and then using the backspin to, if so, compensate. And when it comes to, you know, if we do have a headwind or a direct crosswind, you like, don't even attempt to try to go over. It's not going to be a possibility. Lay up short, and then we're going to bounce either over the rough patch on the other fairway or go directly over, as you know, I explained earlier. And then we do have a long iron or a short iron towards the pin. And that's going to be difficult in the end, as we're going to get into short iron or long iron range. This is going to be close to a must eagle in Master, which is very difficult. But, you know, I would really say that if we do have a tailwind, we noticed that on Monday, those of you playing with Apocalypse level 5 or below, or maybe an Extra Mile level 8 or below, maybe this is not the division for you to play, because this hole is going to be a birdie for you, where it's going to be an eagle for the ones with better clubs. To be, you know, frank. So in the end, 10% downhill for the drive no matter what. Second shot, if we lay up, no elevation. Third shot, minus 10%. And the minus 10% is also going to be applied as the second shot if we reach over the rough with our drive. Hole number 4. After a tough hole on hole number 3, we can, you know, relax a little bit. I don't know if relax is the right word, but at least it's going to be a little bit easier. Matthew, how do we play hole 4 from front tee?
Yeah, Tommy, like you said, for hole 3 there in Master being a must eagle, I look at hole 4 as a must eagle, I think, for most divisions, but especially for rookie. Here I'm going to play it according to the black line. I like to use a quasar ball here, especially just for that side spin, helpful on the drive. I do use about 3 to 5 bars of top spin, approximately 2 to 4 bars of right spin. We're going to bounce basically on the first black square over those middle bunkers and to the left of the tree. You're going to roll it right up to the corner of the fairway where the second black box is. There's no need to really roll it any further, and actually extra distance on this drive can actually give you a worse second shot to the green versus a drive that falls a little bit short. Basically just the shape of the green, and if you go too far, you're going to have to land closer to the hazards. The second shot, it's a direct path to the cup. If you land where that second black box is, do not adjust for any elevation, 0%. I prefer to set up that second shot with my routine 2 bars of backspin on the thorn, aim directly at the pin, about a green square short, depending on, you know, the level of my iron and how much of the ball guide it's lacking. You can play this with any short iron that you're comfortable with. You know, go for your ball guide, go for accuracy, whatever one's going to get it in the hole. I think if you want to have a banner on the weekend, this is when you need to drop. RJ, is this a must make as well for the other second tee division?
Well, I didn't think it was until you said that. Now I don't think I'm going to get a banner. Okay, so we're going to be doing 10%, as Matthew said, and I play this hole two different ways, totally dependent on wind. I don't know if it's correct. I don't know if it's not correct, but it's correct. So, with a tailwind, we're going to play on the left-hand side with the black line. Going with the tailwind, we're going to be back at, we can take full distance of our club and then we can adjust backwards. But we're going to be very close to max distance depending on what driver you have and what level it is. In terms of a headwind, I like to play over on the right-hand side using, I guess it would be the yellow line, and hopping over the bunker instead. And that is because when we make an adjustment, we can push up, giving us more room. So that little trick has always helped me, at least with tour play. So on the right side, you're going to want like an extra mile, 6+. Either side you go should be fine. Watch your top spin. And another thing I want to warn you on is that tree in the middle of all those lines on the drive is in play, and so are its leaves. So if you are playing on the left side, make sure that your bounce is not going too close. Maybe you're on a downward trajectory or something as you're passing those leaves, because it will throw your drive off. Second shot, as Matthew also stated, 0%. Short iron to the hole. This is one we're going to have to dial in if we want to separate ourselves from the pack. What do you got in Masters, Tom?
Yeah, if we do have a crosswind or we do have a tailwind, we are going to play the same, or like same. We're going to go right side of the, let's say yellow line then. Bounce over the bunker, and we're going to leave ourselves with a short iron towards the pin. But only in a tailwind or in a crosswind, as with a headwind, we will not be able to reach over. Even though we go with max overpower, it's going to be difficult, and especially the risk with max overpower, great ball right, great ball left, and then it could be bye-bye. So if we do have a tailwind, crosswind, we go yellow line once again. If we do have a headwind in some sort, we do play white line and we lay up short. We're using the rock, the quarterback, and just use a little top spin to roll up the fairway. There is a little, a bowl-like area there, which means that you cannot go too long, because it's going to roll up and it's going to fall down, and you're going to be on the same spot all the time, which honestly is very valuable, especially in Master when we play on consistency, yardage notes, and same distance all the time, and that's going to be easier for us to do. Second shot from there, if so, it's going to be a rough bump. And there is a little fun there by the rough bump, but it's all wind dependent. If we do have I don't actually remember what wind that is bad or good, but there is specific winds that will make that shot way easier, and some winds that actually will make this shot very difficult. One little thing to just add in the end, if we do have a straight tailwind, we have had that 2 times before, then we have been going for green with power hook, it's called. I think. Yeah, power hook it's called. Which is not something I hope we're gonna do, because it's super inconsistent. And some people are gonna be on green, some people's gonna be in the rough by the green, and some people's gonna be in the sand. And I really dislike those type of odds, especially when I'm absolutely terrible from from the hazard. So in the end, let's see what we're gonna do. There is plenty of stuff to do on this hole, but no matter what, and no matter what way we're playing it in Master, it's gonna be a must-eagle. Win 4, win 5 balls here, and maybe win 5 power 3, win 5 power 2 could be very valuable here, as reduce the wind to an easy way to adjust, and also make the drive especially easier. Hole number 5, the second of the par 3. Matthew, how do we play hole 5 from front tee?
It looks to be very straightforward, yet due to the uneven landing positions all around this green and on it, it basically plays more challenging than it looks. If you have a long iron, such as a Backbone or a Saturn, with like 5 bars of backspin, I recommend using that and going directly at the pin, like slightly right of the pin to accommodate for that right to left slope, adjusting with 10% downhill elevation here. You have a good chance going that way. If you don't have a long iron with 5 bars of backspin, the white line is also a very viable option to get it to the green. Here you still need to use about 2 to 4 bars of back and 2 to 4 bars of right spin. You're going to bounce it right near that white square and get it up towards the left side of the green. There's a small hill there on the side of the green, the left side, you can kind of bounce it just right off the fringe, and it has a little chance to roll down to the pin. RJ, I'm not a massive fan of this hole. Can you simplify it a little bit for me?
I mean, if this hole does worry you, you can play in pro and expert with a guardian and full backspin, kind of point and shoot. Now that is not going to get you in the hole. It's not that simple, like you said. It's a very bumpy green, but it'll give you a nice, easy putt. However, I feel like you're watching this video because you want to compete. We need to do our best to get just to treat every par 3 like a hole in one. And to be able to do that, we're going to be taking our Goliath or higher level players, maybe a B52 or something like that. And we're going to be playing on the left side of the fairway, basically where you see the white box there, with about 4 bars of backspin, depending on the wind. And again, we're also going to be relying on the slope of the green by the fringe, like Matthew had also mentioned. And hopefully we could dial that in and get ourselves a hole-in-one. What do you got in Masters, Tommy?
Yeah, and here it's interesting. We've played this type of hole so many different ways that is in a headwind, we are most likely going to play this one with a sniper, bounce up towards the pin using a wind 5 ball, and then trying to find minimum distance as a starting point to have a clear reference. Because the difficult part with this hole is, sure, it's bumpy, but we play other holes that is bumpy. But the difficult part is to find the same landing spot all the time, because we cannot really rely on the rings to be at the same place, because the rough on the right and rough on the left is kind of follow its way up and also going back a little bit, which means that we can be one place with white ring at one point and one place with white ring at the other point. That's why this hole is so difficult. There's also a way to play with the Guardian, especially in crosswind or like a crosswind with a tailwind, where we can use the beginning of the green, which had massive success last tournament. And it's not often I play with the Guardian, as I don't really like the fact to use a lot of backspin, but that was actually absolute money on that specific hole. If we do have a direct tailwind, we need to have a thought of using the Guardian max backspin there as well, but just start a little bit higher up, or that we're gonna back up and play with a long iron towards the pin. And this is not, in my opinion, going to be like this one that we're gonna say, okay, this is gonna be a must hole in one. I do think this is gonna be a bit more difficult than that. 10% over adjustment no matter what way you're playing, and win 5 ball, at least a win 4 ball on this par 3. So for hole number 6, par 5, tough one, but definitely a possible albatross. First, I want to mention that the text doesn't cover playing over to the left, and actually are bashing down to the left a little bit too much than what we do shall. And the left side is most definitely a viable option that you will hear from me and the other expert here in this video. So Matthew, how do we play hole 6 from front tee?
Okay, good, Tommy. In my estimation, it really is a good chance for an albatross. The hole on this green, it sits up on a little shelf, and it slopes off to the right of the green. So, like I was going to say, I don't want to be the one to disagree with Tommy, but I do feel like the left island is a good path. You adjust for 20% downhill elevation with a minimum of a quasar ball. I like to use the extra mile here. Sometimes I would consider, the added wind resistance of maybe using a kingmaker on this hole. It's up to you, but it's often a possibility. I like 2 topspin. I mean, this is a par 5 after all. I like to pick 1 kingmaker per rookie tournament if I can afford it. I like 2 topspin, 2 left spin for this shot, but play according to the wind that we have in the tournament. On the second shot, I adjust for 10% downhill elevation, and I would recommend playing with a Viper 7 Plus or a Sniper 5 Plus. At least a small amount of right spin, 1 or 2 bars, and a couple of bars of backspin, depending on, your distance on your drive. I like to set my ball guide just slightly right of the pin to counteract that slope, and I've sunk this one quite a few times. Now, the path following the black line, it's also a very good route. I like this one if you're playing it in tailwind, and especially on an account that has an extra mile 6 plus or a big topper in a decent level. You just have to get it over that rough, and then it's actually a very nice place to play from. Adjust your drive at 20% downhill with maximum topspin. And this shot does require, I would say, a Titan ball or greater, to clear that rough and have a good chance at the second shot. And that second shot, adjust it for 10% downhill, and bring a wood club, such as the big dog. But I remember being able to reach here with a Titan and a sniper. So check it out in qualification. Check out the wind, but this is a good chance on this hole to at least have a consistent eagle, maybe get an extra drop. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I do remember playing this off to the left side with a rock, I believe it was. And this was pre-update as well. So now if you're an expert and you have a max rock, all the more power to you. But even pros should be able to go to the left. It's kind of a dangerous shot. The 20% can throw you off a little bit, and you can clip the rough and go into the water. Another problem that you could have, because it's such a skinny fairway, is if you end up in the rough on your first bounce on the other side on the island there, you're definitely in trouble. You're not going to be able to reach over, even if you have a Nirvana, unless maybe if we have really nice tailwind and you actually roll all the way to the top and go maybe just a little bit too far. But I do think that you have a better approach shot taking the left side and a higher opportunity for the albatross. However, I also remember taking a swim down there looking for my balls. So with that being said,
find your balls, RJ. Sorry.
Yeah, well, those kingmakers aren't cheap. But anyway, the black line is a way that I also really like. Extra mile plus, which basically means extra mile, Thor's hammer. You know what that means. Kingmaker or Titan. I would say if we have any type of headwind, I would go with Kingmaker. If we have any kind of tailwind, you might as well take advantage of the wind, get a little bit of extra distance there. We're going to go with right spin, a little bit of right spin, full top spin to get over that rough, and slight OP is usually necessary, but again, we need to wait and see the wind. Your second shot's going to be 10%, and then this is where a Kingmaker could be very important, and actually, if we do have a really good tailwind, maybe a Katana could be used instead of a Kingmaker just because of the cost of balls, although I don't recommend a Power 2 ball. If the wind does allow us to use it, I feel by going straight, we are going to need to use full right spin to aim us at the hole and keep us from either having to use curl to approach the pin and also to stay away from the rough. That's pretty much what I got. What do you got there, Tommy, for Masters? I see a white line with only one box. I assume you're going to tell us how to drive the green with backspin.
If we do have an absolute straight tailwind and we, absolute straight tailwind, we can use a Win 5 Power 0 ball. No, not Win 5. Win 0 Power 5 ball is the right way to pronounce it. And then we can potentially reach very, very far. But, I think that's just the... I doubt we're gonna see a straight tailwind there, but it's gonna be required a lot of wind. I would say we need to have a 17.5 plus to even consider it. But I guess, if we do have a straight tailwind, we will see people try, and let's see if we can go green then, if so, to simplify this one. Because if it's a par 5 and we can reach into a rough iron very close to green, or we have a short iron or a wedge or something like that, even with a high wind, that's going to be better than lay up and play with a sniper. Because the problem in Master, that all of you that have been playing Master before, that are watching this, and know that hitting perfect with a sniper or with any wood club is extremely difficult in Master for some reason. I don't know why, but it's very hard to hit that ball perfect, which means that if we do have a wind that we can push our drive into long iron range, meaning going right side, we're gonna do that rather than lay up with an easier drive on the left, just because of the fact that we hit more perfect playing with a long iron and then with a wood club. But if we do have a crosswind, or we might have a little headwind and we can't really do anything, like on the right side, for an example, then we're gonna play left. Even there is no line, but we all have talked a little bit about the left side, because approach shot from there, if we're gonna compare wood club to wood club and from right or left, wood club shot from the left is gonna be better. than going on the right side. So this is gonna be one of the holes here in this tournament where the wind is gonna be a massive factor on how we're going to play it. So it's hard for me to just say this or that at the moment. We're gonna see that when the tournament starts. 20% over adjustment no matter what type of drive you're gonna do, and then 10% over adjustment for the second shot no matter what, you know, what side you're playing on. Hole 7 is a final par 3 in this tournament. Matthew, how do we play hole 7 from front tee?
You know, I think this is a very funny hole. I like to play it kind of all three options depending on the circumstances. Basically, if we have left to right wind, I'm going to do a rough bump on the left box with maximum right spin. If we have right to left wind, I'm going to do a rough bump on the white box on the right with maximum left spin. Now, if we have any kind of tailwind here, I do like this black box to be sort of a no-move adjustment shot. Now, the funny thing is I tend to play it with a power 3 ball, the Titan ball. Hank Morris from On the Screws Golf taught me that. I give it a bar of top spin and a little bit of side spin, and you just adjust for the wind, played at 10% downhill elevation. You get a really good chance of dialing that shot in. So, you know, I'm not sure how you're going to play it in Pro and Expert, RJ, but this one is it's an interesting par 3 for me.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with everything you said. Just to rehash it, depending on the wind, you could use a rock or you could use a quarterback, and you know, you can choose whichever side of the fairway you want to, or I'm sorry, not fairway, but the rough to do your rough bump on. You know, and then also if you're not comfortable with the rough bump because of the elevation, I know it's zero elevation, but I don't know. I've had a problem with this. There's a rough, or I'm sorry, there's actually a sand trap behind the flag emoji there. I don't think that's an emoji, but yeah, you know, I've been in there, you know, so the black line sometimes looks good, you know, just like you said, and you know, all three options are very viable. If you are going to go with a quarterback or a rock, you're generally going to be using about 0 to 3 backspin. And you could use a quasar, you know, for the side spin that comes with that as well. And then as well as that, you also have the Viper or Sniper option, depending on whether you're in Pro or Expert. That will be a 10% adjustment because the black line is lower than the white line. And we're going to set up right before the bottleneck, but right above the smiley face that Tommy made for us there. So that's how I have hole 7. Yeah, you can't miss that.
Never unsee that.
What you got, Tommy?
Yeah, exactly. Like, just as a quick side note, it's definitely like a smiley. It's like the white boxes are eyes, the black is a nose, and then a really, really big brain. So I guess it's not. I guess it's not you then, RJ, right?
Oh, it's a Swedish hole.
That's Swedish hole. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Some Swedish, or like maybe myself. I don't know.
That's
okay.
on you.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Okay. That now we're getting out of the. Yeah. Screw that. Okay. So hole 7 then. Master T. We're gonna play black line. The rough bump is pretty much out of the question here because this is a long par 3. You see 207 yards, and that's going to be, you know, with a driver all the time. And we have been playing this with a quarterback or the rock bouncing at the black box with various type of changes in terms of position depending on the wind and what people feel comfortable with. The thing is with this one though, it's like it's very, very sensitive if we do have a tailwind or we do have a headwind in some sort, and also when we do have a crosswind. If we don't, let's say you have a straight crosswind one time and then you have a little angle towards headwind one time, the thing that's going to happen there is with a straight crosswind you're going to adjust and to be, you know, on the same, you know, height point all the time. But if you do have a headwind a little bit, or a tailwind for that matter, then you're gonna go and be a little bit higher up or a little bit further down in terms of elevation. That's all going to have an effect with your shot. That's why this hole can never be a 100% drop. We're gonna have to obviously try to find a way to compensate for the different type of things. But I do believe this is gonna be a one that we're gonna be very close. or it's going to be in. Not someone where we can say, which we can say with certain par 3s, that okay, this is going to be a drop just that we hit perfect. So that's what's going to be difficult here, and I think the key for those players playing in Master is to not spend that much time on this hole, especially if you don't feel dialed in with some of the rest, just to make sure that, you know, this is not taking up all the time in your preparation, because again, you cannot get this one 100%. And in Master, also play 10% over adjustment for the drive. Win 5 ball. Woohoo. Hole number 8, ladies and gentlemen, and we have all looked forward to have this hole once again in the tournament. So Matthew, how do we play hole 8 from front tee?
Yeah, the notorious 8th hole from the City Park course is commonly detested and reviled by longtime players of the game, and soon to be loathed by new players alike. My preference in rookie is to play here as safely as possible and try to get the ball to the green in, you know, as few shots as possible, with a slim chance for eagle, but almost always playing for a safe birdie. Using a Titan ball, I apply 2 bars of topspin and maximum left spin. Now I set up my landing position with the bottom left portion of the orange ring just touching the rough, so just on the left, just ahead of that black box, in near the bunker. And so I'm going to have my ball guide pointing towards the final right-hand bunker. So even in higher winds, this really cautious drive setup should keep you free from the hazard. And the second shot, it's certainly possible to be executed with a horizon or even a higher level sniper. Yet, like I said, I do play this hole safely. So the big dog at 0% downhill elevation with the second bounce kind of at the fringe. If you can reach that far, I'm going to play with approximately a half a bar of backspin and a little bit of side spin to the left to get that ball guide to the pin. Now, if your drive it's a bit shorter and your second shot is further back so that the second bounce of your second shot is not reaching the fringe, you're going to want to use like a little bit of topspin, 0 to 2 bars, to get that ball up to the hole. Now, I'd like to just set this up a little bit slightly to the right of the pin when you're bouncing in off that angled fairway in front of the green. It's a tough one. If you get an eagle here, send me the video, would you please? RJ, what are you doing here in pro?
Not getting the eagle.
Yeah.
Actually, your best chance of, you know, really the hard part of this is the drive. But that's such an understatement because it's so hard to stay on the fairway with the drive. 10%, make sure you know that 10% because, you know, you could miss the rough or the sand by the tiniest of amounts there. So yeah, longest driver, kingmaker to knock down that wind. This is one of those times you want to spend a little on a ball. But I would say both in pro and in expert. Usually the way that I kind of dialed this in a little bit is 3 top spin, full left spin, and about half a ball of left curl. We're going to be landing right about where that first black box is close to the rough. You know, you want to great proof it, but as close to the left rough as you can with that half ball of, the half ball of curl, and then with the 3 top spin. Usually it's 3. We could have a crazy wind. Maybe it'll be 2. Maybe it'll be 4. But for the purpose of not knowing the wind, I'm going to say that with the 3 top spin, you should stop right before you get into the rough or into the sand where you see that second black box. That's going to set us up with a secondary shot of either the big dog or the cataclysm. And in pro and expert, you know, big dog's not the most accurate club, and cataclysm, we're not going to have the higher levels. So it's not going to be a gimme shot on the pin. You know, it's not like we're using a sniper here and we're going to be fortunate that way. So that's why I say I really don't think there's going to be too many eagles. And please also CC me in that email that you're sending to Matthew about the eagle, because I don't think I've even seen one, not myself or my opponent. However, you're going to your second bounce, much like Matt had just mentioned, you're going to want that on the slight uphill fairway right before the green. I actually have 1 top spin to 3 back spin depending on the wind. You'll be able to tell from your ball guide whether you're going a little too hard or not hard enough. And then just take your putt and, be happy that you got away not at a par here would be my advice. What's going on with that 20-mile-an-hour gust you guys play at Masters, Tommy?
Yeah. If we do have a tailwind, we're gonna go for I think it's a power hook coming that direction, or like going right to left. So we're gonna go a power hook, and the power hook is, the plan is gonna be to be on the fairway, or it's gonna be in the rough somewhere. And when I say in the rough somewhere, meaning that we're just still playing it for the birdie, but we're taking away the difficulties that we do have with the drive. Otherwise, you just try to be smart and lay up, because a great ball could literally just make you go into the rough or into the sand, even though you think you have compensated for it. If you go for a power hook, or a shot in general that is aggressive, where you risk the rough, play with the Amazon as the rough iron, because then you do have a lot of backspin if you're gonna just play for the green with a high wind, or you're going to have a lot of topspin and distance if you do mess up completely and go short in rough. Because I do think we going to have a hard time to stay away from the fact that we will sometimes playing it from 30, roll into the rough, and we will having to lay up very short by the green. So my plan is obviously to have a recovery plan with, my end bringer, or with my short iron there close to the green, especially in the guides. And if we do have a headwind or a crosswind, we have had a direct headwind on this one before, then it's a power 4 ball and wind 4 if possible, and we are actually going to try to play with max curl all the time. And why do we play with max curl all the time? It's because the fairway does slope left to right, and trying to just trickle that in between all the bunkers is going to be difficult enough. So we're using the curl to come in more right, to have a better angle onto the fairway, and therefore have an easier time to have the ball to stay on the fairway. Even though it's not going to be an easy one, it's still going to be a better chance. So, I think everyone that has ever played this one from 30 before, and everyone that will play from 30 now, is gonna think either that they want every hole to be like this, or they are just gonna never want to see it again, because it's like a love or hate hole really. And a birdie is going to be a good score. There's going to be more pars than it's going to be eagles on hole number 8. 10% over adjustment for the drive. Second shot, no elevation. And if we do make it to the second shot, which we should obviously some sort, then we play with the cataclysm, and also the big dog in a high level could be preferred. So we do have the distance and just getting up to green. Hole number 9, the final hole in the tournament. We're playing a par 5 as usual. So, Matthew, how do we play hole 9 from front tee?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult hole, but I think it's a very, very achievable eagle. In fact, I think most of us are going to be eagling here in rookie. Follow the black line with a club such as the extra mile, or maybe even a big topper here if you have one. Choose a Titan. I like to use here, especially for the second shot. Play it at 20% downhill elevation. You're going to bounce it off the end of the fairway where that first black box is, and roll it as far down the fairway as you can up towards the second black box, obviously without getting into the rough. So take it easy if you use the big topper. I don't think you need all of it, so probably going to be an extra mile play. Second shot, play it at 5% uphill elevation. So you're going to just bounce it in by that third black square and play it kind of just before the bunker, or you can kind of tuck it into the right there with a bit of right spin. I like to use a big dog here. Now, there is a path to the right. I don't really recommend it. You usually have to use a fair bit of overpower in rookie to reach that final green. It's quite risky. Yes, you can get it to the green, so if you feel comfortable with that route, go ahead, but I'm going to be sticking to the black line, I think. What do you think, RJ?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I actually don't even have it in my notes, but I do remember that being a shot a few tournaments ago, and when I say a few tournaments ago, actually mean probably closer to a few years ago, where you would actually roll down the rock and then hope that you trickle out of the rough onto the fairway. And that could pay off, but like you said, overpower and such. The way that I would just like to say it for the officialness of the guides is we have the black and we also have the white. Whichever one you prefer is whichever one you could use. With the white one, you might need to use a extra mile or one of your longer drivers. And with the black line, you may be able to get away with a higher level quarterback. Also, depending on the wind, like you said, we want to get up as close as we can to the rough, but without feeling like we're putting ourselves in danger. So don't accidentally roll into the rough and have to use your Nirvana, because then you're definitely not getting your eagle. Your second shot, I actually have 0% written down. I'm not 100% sure, -5 or 0, but I have a big dog or a cataclysm, pro or expert, or wherever you are with that. Your first bounce is going to be right about where that black box is. Right beyond that, I'm not sure if you could see unless you're watching on a larger device, there is a sand trap right before the putting green. And we're going to go with anywhere from 0 to 4 bars of backspin, depending on wind. We're going to bounce before that the bunker, and then we're going to our second bounce is going to be on the green, and then we're going to hopefully have a nice easy putt. 20% for the first shot. And what do you got, Tommy?
Yeah, it's interesting. We had this hole in a tournament the 10th of December 2018, the last time, which was in the Festive Cup. Actually, weird that I know it, but yeah. So this hole is going to be interesting because it hasn't been played much, and we haven't tried many different alternatives with it, which means that this is going to be generally an eagle here. I remember the last time I played it, we played it according to the black line, bounced on the fairway over to the other fairway, then had a cataclysm or the big dog for the second shot bouncing over the bunker. We actually had to use overpower on that shot many of the time, so that was like, you got the eagle, but it really wasn't that fun because you felt that the chance was so minimal getting an albatross. If we do have a straight tailwind here, we can use a berserker ball or a snow globe ball, like a wind 0/1 and a power 5 ball, and to go with some sort of a power slice, trying to get the ball as close as possible to the green, and then have most likely a rough iron or something like that for the albatross. But again, having to overpower a cataclysm, even though it might be just like a 20-30% overpower, or having a Nirvana in medium distance without overpower, I would take the Nirvana all day and every day for that slightly better chance for an albatross there. Sure, you can play right side as well. I do feel that if we're going to have to bounce on the fairway in some sort in Master, we're going to play the left-hand side, because it is very tricky to get that ball to stop on the other fairway, and most likely gonna roll into the rough on the top left. So difficult hole, 20% over adjustment for the drive. And just to mention, when it comes to the elevation for the second shot, depending on wind, you can use a different type of elevation. You don't have to be stuck on 0, but that's at least the default, the thing that I'm going to start on. But depending on wind, I might play -5, I might play +10. So we always need to be prepared on being a bit innovative when it comes to the elevation and, adapt to the situation. Power 4 ball, power 3 ball, but, a power 4 win 4 wouldn't be bad. But again, I know that might not everyone is having that type of ball, but the power 4 ball in general here is going to be the best ball to play with. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for watching this walkthrough. We had a blast. I hope you did too. I hope you got some good notes for the division that you are playing on. And before we're gonna summarize with what we think is gonna be the score to actually take us to weekend round, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You can get the link to the general text guides that I'm showing here on the screen by using the link in the description down below, or going to the website golfclashtommy.com. And if you do want to get the ultimate tournament text guides which is, you know, detailed instruction for every hole based on the tournament win, then you go and subscribe to patreon.com/golf/Tommy. So, Matthew, when it comes to rookie, what do you think is going to be the score to go to the weekend round?
You know, as conservative as it sounds, I think that 1 or 2 shots better than, you know, Golf Clash par. I think if you get, you know, a 13 under, 14 under on each 9, 12 to 13 under on each 9, you're going to make it to the weekend in rookie. There might be a few higher end brackets where that isn't true, but I do think, you know, a 26 under is going to get you to the weekend in rookie almost always. I think just play safe, play for the fairways, right? Play for the greens. And if you have to make the decision between taking a risky overpowered shot or doing something safely and securely, take the safe path.
Yeah, I would say for pro, we're probably looking at about a -21 to make it to the weekend. And then an expert, I would bump that up to about a -22. Now, I'm not telling you to aim for those. I'm just saying I kind of feel like those are the scores that'll get you right around 40, you know, and basically the top half of 50. Don't aim for that, but you still have a shot with those.
In Master, I would say it all depends on what wind we have on hole 3. If we do have a tailwind on hole 3, that's going to be an absolute must eagle, no matter how tough we're thinking that is going to be, because then we can clear the rough. And then I think getting to the weekend round is going to be, you know, a 23, 24. I know that in Master, generally, we need 1 extra, except for, you know, par score or whatever we can call it, which should be generally a 25. But as hole 3 will, like, even though I say it's going to be a must eagle, it's still not going to be a must eagle for everyone. So I do think 23, 24, if hole 3 is not possible to, like, if we have to lay up, then I definitely think we're gonna go through with 22s, 21, 22s in Master. So we'll see what type of wind. The other holes is pretty much straightforward and should be able to do the regular score no matter what type of wind we're gonna have, actually. So, yes, everyone, thank you once again for watching. Don't forget to comment in the comment section below with what you think is going to be the score that get you to the weekend round. And, you know, much love from us all. To you all, a merry... No. So, thank you guys for being here with us.
Thank you.
And, you know, everyone, have a beautiful day.